Perfect. And I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Everybody can see that? Feeling good? Feeling great? Okay. And let me pull up my notes. So I don't want to get anyone sick, but I am going to flip through so I can get to the terminology sections as we've discussed before. Before we kick off, these are the Institute modules that we are going to be looking at. So I hope that you guys all had an opportunity to run through these modules prior to us meeting, because that's going to be where we're going to be pulling out all of our content. At the very end of the slides, I will give you the January modules, and then you guys ideally would go in there, would take those modules, and then we will talk about that content mid-January. So let's just go ahead and jump into terminology review. We will move through this pretty quickly as long as everybody's engaged in chit-chatting with me. Otherwise, I say this every time. You guys, I wanted to be a teacher, specifically like a kindergarten teacher, because kids are amazing. Life didn't go that way, but I am really comfortable with sitting in silence. So just keep that in mind. I will wait you out. I'm great at that. Not that I ever would have had the opportunity to do that with kindergartners, because I don't think that they know what silence is, but still. My very first question is, when I say the phrase social and emotional development to you, what do you think that is meaning? When we're talking about social and emotional development in young kiddos, can somebody just give me a quick synopsis of what social and emotional development means to you? And you guys can enter into the chat function, or you can take yourselves off mute. I'm completely comfortable to read stuff out.
I would say interaction with others.
Absolutely. Social interaction, right? That's that social piece. And then we talk about, we got some other folks joining us. And then we're talking about that emotional development piece, right? Especially in kiddos, this is the coolest thing. If you guys have ever taken an ASQ SE2 training, ASQ SE2 specifically looks at social and emotional development in kiddos. And you guys, it's the wildest, coolest thing, in my opinion, to get to watch. But you were perfectly correct. We're going to be looking at social interaction and how that's going with folks, right? We're also going to be looking at what is that level of emotional awareness that individual has, and then self-regulation. So this is really learning how to calm ourselves down, learning how to express ourselves in an appropriate manner. For kiddos, we might see this in, they're crying, but once all of their needs are met, they're able to settle down. They're able to find that level of homeostasis again. Or if you're working with kind of a sort of older kiddo who is trying to complete a task, and this task is really difficult for them, like they're struggling, but they're persisting at that task, that is also going to be a level of self-regulation. Social interaction for kiddos, when we're talking about this and what this dynamic looks like, you're going to see you're going to see as they progress in their social and emotional development, kids are learning how to take turns. They're learning how to help each other. They're learning how to play with their friends, and they're really learning how to cooperate. And once we hit that sweet spot of about that 4 to 5 year old range, that's when they really learn rules and appropriateness of their behavior. So what's appropriate for a restaurant may or may not be appropriate for a playground, may or may not be appropriate for a church service, may or may not be appropriate for their home life, et cetera, et cetera. When we are talking about social and emotional development, that is what that social interaction piece is looking at. And then the last one that we talked about was that emotional awareness. So this is going to be a child or an individual's ability to recognize their feelings and to really understand what those are. Also, how their feelings and how others' feelings play into their day-to-day life. So, they're going to be able to understand that I'm happy, but Susie, my friend Susie, is really upset, and they're going to be able to differentiate between those things. Any questions about the three components that make up social and emotional development? So this is a big one. This one was the one that was covered with the first module. So the developmental stages and milestones, this is where that piece came from. So I want you guys to feel like you have a good grasp on that. So social and emotional development, we're all good? Just shoot some thumbs up to me. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Mari. All right. The next thing that we are going to talk about is attachment. And for those of you that were here for one of the first two sessions that we did talk a little bit about attachment. At that time, we also talked about various forms of stress, etc. So when I say the word attachment to you in relation to a parent and child relationship, what do you think of? What is your definition for attachment? And again, you can take yourselves off mute or you can enter into the chat function.
To me, attachment is having a healthy relationship with another person. Obviously, in our case, it would be a caregiver and a child, and building that trust relationship and knowing that you can trust and depend on that person.
I love it. Developing a relationship with another person, a consistent and dependable relationship that is founded in trust. You guys are nailing it. So in the modules, it defines attachment in regards to the parent and child relationship as an emotional bond that develops over time, which provides kids with a safe and secure place where they can learn to regulate their emotions and to manage those emotions. When we're talking about attachment in regards to a parent and child relationship, some ways that parents can really work on forming that, especially in the earlier days, is doing things like talking to their kiddo, singing to baby, reading to their child. I mean, these are all things that we can be doing, engaging when that child comes to you with some sort of a question or a concern. Those are all ways that you can really build upon that attachment. Taking turns, even in the earlier days. So I love it. Early babies, they coo, right? We know that babies coo, they make fun noises. A great way to encourage the development of a healthy attachment style is to teach that parent, like, kiddo might not understand the exact words that you're saying right now, but those back and forth interactions are such a huge part that you should definitely be cooing back to them or responding when they're doing those things to you. Typically, we call those interactions, those types of interactions, serve and return. And I'm going to skip to my next slide because there's a lot of stuff that comes with serve and return. And if you guys were not aware, serve and return interactions have 5 steps to them, okay? And instead of bugging you and asking you to name out all 5 and to give me some descriptors of all 5, I'm just going to go through and pull out the definitions and describe that 5-step process to you. So when we're talking about serve and return interactions, that's when baby comes to you or child comes to you and they try to form an interaction with you, and then that parent returns that interaction, right? So step 1 of that is to notice the serve. So the child is seeking attention and the caregiver notices that that child is seeking attention, right? That's step 1. Parent has to notice what's going on. So it's really super helpful if we put our phones down and maybe aren't watching TV all the time, et cetera, just to make sure that we're catching those serves. Second step is to return the serve. So this means that at this point in this process, the caregiver is going to acknowledge the interest or serve the return or return the serve that the child has just given. So they're going to, babies, say for example, babies wanting to show parents the cool thing on TV. Use that as an example. Parents notice that and they give child full attention and they say, oh, that's fun, or they acknowledge what the child is trying to get across to them, right? The third step is going to be to give it a name. So this is where we're going to be coming in with labeling the object or the action or the person or whatever it is, giving connections to what is drawing that child's interest. So is it a person, place, thing, or emotion? Are we going to give that a name? We're going to label that. That's really important because it helps the child to start to build connections in their brain. I'm seeing this and I'm looking at my caregiver and they're labeling it for me. So now I'm going to start to be able to, every time I look at this, for example, I'm going to use my son. Right now, he is huge into PJ Masks. And if you don't have a little right now, God bless your soul, because PJ Masks is like, it's doing things to me, you guys. I have the theme song running in a loop in my head. But he gets really excited because one of the little action heroes, his name is Gecko. And my kid will literally look at the TV and then look at me and point and get very excited about it. And my response is, oh, you see Gecko. You love Gecko. Gecko makes you happy. And I'm labeling what he is trying to put my way. I'm acknowledging this is what's happening, and I'm returning that serve to him and giving it a name. Guess what his first action hero name was? It was Gecko, you guys. Now he screams Gecko throughout my house all day long. He literally woke up this morning screaming Gecko from his bedroom. It's great. But that happened because of that consistent serve and return interaction that we were doing together. Gecko came on the screen. He would get excited. Mommy would point it out and label it to him. And that made him really happy, right? So the fourth step is going to be to take turns and to wait. And this is such a big portion of serve and return, you guys. And I say that because we process things very quickly, right? We have a familiarity with things like TV shows and geckos. Our kiddos maybe don't have that. So the most crucial part is to wait for them to have enough time to formulate a response and to give you that response to what you just said. This allows that serve and return process to continue. So kiddo has kicked it over to us. We have now kicked it back to kiddo. We are sitting here waiting for them to give us a response before they turn it back over to us, right? We're taking turns. We're teaching that back and forth. And then the final step of the process is to practice endings and beginnings. And this is just when we are acknowledging that a child is tired or exhausted or over the conversation that we're having, which we understand they're littles and they have very quick, very short attention spans. So it's really being on our guard and making sure that we are allowing the child to move through this serve and return process at their own pace, not our pace, at their own pace, right? Okay. Any questions about serve and return and what that looks like? Okay. How about parent and child relationship impactors? So I'm asking you guys, what are some things that impact a parent and child relationship? There are 3 factors that were outlined specifically in the modules for this month. If you guys were able to tend to those, that's awesome. Go on ahead and lay all 3 out on me. But if you were not, take some guesses. What are 3 things that you would anticipate would impact a parent and child relationship?
I haven't watched that specific module yet, but I see, I was going to say the exact same thing. Someone just put parents, emotional well-being. So
Right.
I see that people are putting that.
And I see some responsiveness in here too. Yes. Awesome.
Parent stressors.
Yeah. So those outside factors that come in, right? There are outside influences that come in and that can impact that parent-child relationship. Temperament is also a big thing, you guys. Temperament. There are 3 types of temperaments out there when it comes to our kiddos, right? First one is going to be easygoing. Second one is going to be that active temperament style. And third one is going to be that slow to warm, right? And these were things that we talked about in a prior study group session together. But I just want to remind you, a lot of the content in the modules, they kind of overlap and they bleed into each other, which is great because the more contact you have with something, the more you're going to retain that information. So temperament is one of the things that will definitely impact a parent-child relationship. Another thing would be goodness of fit. So this is going to be the compatibility that occurs between the adult caregiver and that child's temperament, right? If you have an adult that's really easygoing, and then you have a kiddo that's maybe slower to warm, we're going to have to do some finessing to make sure that the health of that relationship stays intact. Because I don't know if, for example, and this is in a different relational example, but like, I'm not a morning person. I am very slow to warm in the mornings. My husband is very active. He's like, go, 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 go. And we had to come to a compromise where I said to him, I was like, I love you so much. We have been together for 8 beautiful and wonderful years. We've built a house and a home together. But I swear to the heavens above, if you continue to wake me up in the mornings, murder will be afoot, right? Probably not the healthiest way to go about finding compromise, but that's the way to do it, right? So that's going to play into how those parent and their kiddos are able to interact with each other. So keeping that in mind. And then the other influences that may happen, this may be if there's some form of trauma, if there's some sort of, mental or emotional situation going on, some sort of a delay. If you have a kiddo that has a differing abilities. So say you have a child who maybe has Asperger's, or they're on autism spectrum, or they have some sort of a physical delay, whatever that may be, all of those things are going to be impacting that specific relationship that parent and child has, right? Okay. Moving on from that section, let's talk developmental domains. And I'm asking you guys, can you guys tell me the 5 areas of developmental domains? Hint, hint, if you do the ASQ3, these are measured in that assessment, which I think you guys all should be doing the ASQ3.
There's physical development, including gross motor and fine motor.
Absolutely.
Social emotional development.
Beautiful.
Cognitive.
Beautiful. One more. It's the very last one.
Problem solving. That's cognitive though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we doing right now?
Communication.
Communication.
Yes, Tiffany. Thank you guys. Right. So I always find the easiest way to remember this is because of the ASQ3 assessment, right? Right? We always have to do these with our family. So those 5 developmental domains that they break out, same for our modules. The only difference is that in these modules that we covered for this month's session, they lumped physical as gross motor and fine motor skills together, right? So it is what it is, but in the ASQ3, they are broken out. So it's fine motor, gross motor, and then cognitive. I believe it is communication instead of language, because I don't know why in the modules it says language, because there's verbal and then there's nonverbal. So communication covers that, but here's where we're at. And then social and emotional, right? So these are the quick descriptors of what each developmental domain covers. I'm not going to hammer on those too hard because you are all very intelligent women. And I know that you guys know what these developmental domains are. You guys have been doing this for a while now. When we are talking about cognitive development, This is what we are talking about them learning. We want to see them learning to write, understanding those concepts, gaining knowledge over time about the world around them, what's going on. And then we want to be able to see them problem solving, right? Like what Catherine had said, problem solving. That's all part of cognitive development. For what we should be encouraging parents to do, here's some descriptors, and these might not all be very age appropriate. So just keep it in mind that this is covering ages 0 to 3 and then 3 to 5 when we set about the module. So 0 to 5 is getting covered here. When we are talking about cognitive development and we are working with our parents on making sure that they're doing their best to support that development within their child, these are going to be some different ideas that you as home visitors and family support workers can incorporate into your parenting education. What I am going to do, because I will say these two modules, the two typical and atypical development modules, you guys, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to take those two. One of them is 120 minutes in length, which is a kicker, I understand. But the amount of content that is in that module is out of this world. Same with the second one. I took as much of it as I could and incorporated it into our terminology review today, but there's a lot more there for you guys to have access to. So I really do encourage you to not just rely on this, but to also go take those two modules. When we are talking cognitive development for ages 3, 4, and 5, there are going to be some things that are going to be causes for concern. And I want to lay a blanket statement down right now, which is something that I very rarely do in the world of home visiting and family support, because let's be honest, no two families are the same. But I am going to throw a blanket statement down for you guys for when you are taking a test. And if it asks you what are some causes for concerns regarding, development in children, if a child, and I do not care how old they are, if a child has any type of concerns with eating, sleeping, eliminating, or personal safety, that is an immediate cause for concern, regardless of their age. Those are the core 4 things that I teach in our ASQ trainings: eating, sleeping, eliminating, so those bodily functions, peeing, pooping, and that physical safety, that personal safety. And as we talk about social and emotional development, I want you guys to understand that things like stranger danger, those are normal. And to have an absence of stranger danger, that is a concern, right? That's where that personal safety is going to come into play. So specifically for cognitive development, by age 3, if you are working with a kiddo at age 3 and they cannot work simple toys, or they cannot understand simple directions, put the toy on the table. If a 3-year-old does not understand how to put a toy on a table, that would be a cause for concern, right? Okay. 4-year-olds, specifically looking at that 4-year-old range, if they do not play games or have any form of make-believe. Have you ever met a kiddo that's like, I don't really want to play Tea Party. I don't want to play Dr. Set. I don't really know how to do that. That might be a cause for concern. Kiddos at the age of 4 are naturally inquisitive and imaginative. This is such a fun age, you guys. I love this age group so much. Also, if they cannot retell their favorite story, or if they do not understand things that are the same and things that are different. So, for example, colors. These two things are both red. This one is red and this one is blue. If they're struggling to understand similarities and differences, that's also a cause for concern. Age 5. At age 5, this is where we're going to be seeing kiddos who, if they do not understand the difference between real and make-believe, that is a concern. Also, if they do not play a variety of activities, if they're not really into drawing things, they can't draw pictures, things like that, those are all going to be levels of concern, depending on what's going on for that age group. But remember, the core 4 applies to everyone. Okay. When we are talking language development, we are wanting our kiddos to learn how to communicate, right? So we want to include those expressive and receptive languages. We want them to be able to sit down and have a conversation with us, right? That's our whole goal. We all want to be communicative, healthy, happy adults who understand how to hold a conversation, right? We want that. We also want to make sure that we are encouraging our parents to read to their children, you guys. I can't remember the exact number. I want to say it was like a 3,000 word gap. We were finding that kiddos whose parents didn't really speak to them throughout the day or didn't read to them were developing a very large word gap, language gap, right? They were about 3,000 words behind those kiddos that were getting read to or getting talked to by their parents routinely. Even if it's something as silly as, like, for example, my son, every time I change his diaper, I talk to him through the whole process. Oh, mommy's going to pull this up. Oh, mommy's going to wipe you up. Oh, we got to pull our drawers up so that way they were not running around with our diaper bottoms. Like, whatever that may be, whatever that may look like for that individual parent or caregiver, that's what we really want to be encouraging, right? Any type of language sharing, whether it's expressive, receptive, if it's nonverbal, things like that, we want to make sure that parents are doing that. And I loved the very last bullet because it says that you really want to encourage parents to avoid swear words. Because why? At the ages of 4 and 5, we have little mockingbirds following us around, right? We've got little parrots. So if mommy drops an F-bomb at home routinely, chances are kiddo is going to go to school and drop an F-bomb and they're not really going to realize what's being said. So if you don't want your children to be doing that, then this is really going to be the time frame that we're going to want to watch what we're saying, how we're saying it, and to make sure that everything we're communicating is appropriate for those little ears to be hearing. Causes for concern. And again, there are so many more that I'm listing out for you guys, so make sure you do take those modules. But causes for concern at age 3, if you're working with a child who cannot speak in sentences, that would be a level of concern. By age 4, if they do not use me and you correctly, that may be a cause for concern. So for example, when kids are younger, they start off using correct grammar, right? They kind of do. Catherine's shaking her head no, and I'm like, they do, I promise this. So they start off using correct grammar. They'll start off saying, I want. And then somewhere along the lines, they get introduced to the word me. And so suddenly it'd be me want instead of I want. And they're struggling to learn the differences between when to use I and when to use me. But by age 4, that should be cleared up. Okay. So we want them to understand the differences between me and you. We also would have to have a conversation if maybe there's some form of speech delay or underdevelopment. So if they're not able to speak clearly, or if they cannot retell a favorite story, those are going to be causes for concern as well. For age 5, we want to make sure that those kiddos are able to say their first and their last name. We also want to make sure that there's no causes for concern. Can they come home and can they tell you about their day? Can they talk to you about the things that they've been doing? Mommy, today we went outside. We went outside and we played. Or are they coming home and they're struggling to communicate what they've done for the day with you? That would be a cause for concern. And then the use of plurals or past tense by age 5, they should be able to do these correctly. So they would be able to say, oh, I saw dogs at the dog park, or I saw dog at the dog park. They would be able to tell the difference between that, right? Okay. The next one's pretty big. Social and emotional development. I took 2 bullets off of each age group. So the first 2 applies to what a 3-year-old will be learning. The second 2 bullets apply to what a 4-year-old should be learning. And the final 2 bullets apply to what a 5-year-old should be learning around social and emotional development. I'm going to say this again. There are a ton more examples listed in the modules. Please, please, please go take them, because there's much more than the 2 that I pulled out. It's just the slides were going to be overwhelming if I didn't narrow it. So around the ages of 3, they are learning to become more social and relational, and they are also learning to take turns in games, right? You go, I go, you go, I go. Lots of serve and return is happening. By age 4, they're learning how to resolve conflicts, and they're beginning to understand the consequences of their actions. This is also, again, that sweet spot where they start learning rules. So they know, mommy told me not to eat the cookies before dinner and I ate all of them. I'm going to get in trouble. They understand that. They get rules, they get the consequences, they understand how to resolve conflicts, right? And then by age 5, this is where we see that nothing can touch me. Nothing can get me down. I can take on the world. I'm 5. I have energy. My parents don't. And it's a great day to be alive for me. I'm just going to take care of everything, right? This is also when you're going to start seeing them being able to handle their own self-care. So they're getting better at brushing their teeth, at changing their clothes when they need to, getting dressed in the morning, putting on their own shoes. This is kind of around the time where we have our earliest little teenagers starting to form, right? During this time, it's really important that we're encouraging parents to support social and emotional development. So again, the first 2 apply to our age 3 group. So we want to see parents giving simple choices. Do you want juice or do you want milk? Milk or juice? Very simple. Giving simple directions. Put the cup on the counter. Very simple, right? At around age 4, we're going to be really working on teaching children to identify and describe their own feelings. That's so important, you guys. I really want to live in a world where everyone is happy, healthy, and well-adjusted as adults. And it starts with our kids. It starts with our babies. So the fastest that we can teach them to identify what they're feeling and how to describe that and how to seek help if they need it, it's gonna be so beautiful. And then around age 5, that's where we really should be encouraging parents. Let them try things. Let them have a little bit more freedom. Let them pick out their clothes. Who cares if they're going to school in polka dot pants and a striped shirt? Let it happen, man. They're kids. They're 5. Nobody cares. And then let them learn how to work out their own problems. It's so easy for us to just want to jump in and do things. I mean, I'm a social worker by trade. My heart is on my sleeve, and I always am just like, oh, I'll help you here. Let me do that for you. And it's so hard because when we take over and when we start doing those things, we're really preventing them from learning to do for themselves. And again, I want to live in a utopian world where everybody is happy, healthy, and well-adjusted, and nobody needs 16 therapy sessions a week. So this is how we get there. We let them learn on their own, and we let them try things, and we let them have a little bit of that freedom. As long as they're not hurting themselves or others, this is a good place to be. Okay, so causes for concern. Again, blanket statement, the core 4, eating, sleeping, eliminating, personal safety, huge when it comes to social and emotional development, huge. Additional causes for concern at age 3 would be if a kiddo is not making eye contact. So if you ever take an ASQ training, an ASQ SE training, something that you learn about is you will learn about those that are more of an internal expression or those that are more of an external expression. And this just means that kiddos that are going to be able to display their emotions externally. Those are going to be those kids that they get mad and they pick up a chair and they hoof it across the room, right? That's an outward display of their emotion. They're frustrated. I don't know what to do. I'm picking up my chair and I'm throwing it. Then you have kiddos that are internalizers. And these are going to be the ones that get really fearful, really anxious. They avoid eye contact. They think people are watching them. Very, very anxiety riddled. If we are looking at social and emotional development in a 3-year-old and they are uncomfortable with eye contact, I would think that there's something additional going on, social and emotionally in that development region. I would kind of be concerned that that kiddo is an internalizer. So to give you a personal example, because I feel like I remember things better when my instructors give personal examples. My nephew, super awesome kid, really great, right? We did not know that he was going to school and that he was having really poor eye gaze, right? He was really poor eye gaze, couldn't make eye contact with his teachers, was very uncomfortable to play with his other friends, looked really anxious, looked really nervous. At one point, he had said something like, I think people are watching me, things like that. Without his teachers noticing that, we would have never known that he was an internalizer, because when he's at home, totally different kid. He's comfortable. This is a safe space. But when he was out in those group settings, he was an internalizer. And thankfully, those teachers caught that, and we were able to get him the assistance that he needed. So keep that in mind for those 3-year-olds. Also, if they don't play any type of pretend, or if they don't show any interest in playing with other children or toys, those would be some causes for concern. Age 4, again, if they are not showing interest to other kiddos, big cause for concern. Usually around this age is when you see kiddos like wander away from their parents and they're like, I'm good, thank you, I've got my friends, bye mom, I don't need you anymore, see you later. This is usually around that age. And if you're not seeing that happening, then that's a cause for concern. And then age 5, if they don't show a wide range of emotions, if they're not really responding to people, or if they're responding superficially, if they're, yeah, I'm fine. That might be a cause for concern. Or if they show some form of extreme behavior. So I know I gave you the example of the externalizing kiddo picking up the chair and throwing it across the room. That would be a sign of more extreme behavior, because that kiddo doesn't know how to regulate themselves at this point without externally displaying that emotion. So that would be another cause for concern. Any questions about social emotional development? Okay. All right. Last but not least is our beautiful physical development. So what they are learning at age 3, they are able to pedal a trike and they are able to walk in a straight line. By age 4, they are able to roll and climb and hop and stand on one foot. By age 5, they can now ride a 2-wheel bike and also should be able to start skipping. So those are some bigger, those are more gross motor skills that you will see a child doing around those ages. And then we always want to encourage parents to give kids enough time to play outdoors, run around, be crazy. That's how that physical development is really going to hit its stride. We also want to be teaching them new games and skills, and additionally allowing them that unstructured playtime. It's just so important. Obviously, causes for concerns in physical development, especially in gross motor development. If the child is falling down a lot, that would be a cause for concern. Also, and this applies to gross motor and fine motor development. If you see a child losing any of the skills that they once had, big red flag, like slap the red flag on it right away, huge. They're regressing and we need to figure out why. especially when it comes to things like being able to walk. You have a child that was completely mobile and was able to walk and run and whatever, and then all of a sudden that goes away. That would be a huge cause for concern. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, but the module definitely hammered on that one. So I want to make sure that I too return that favor and hammer on that one for you guys. Are there any questions about what we've covered? Because that was it for our terminology review. If anyone who's on, because I know we're not quite at our hour time, but if there's anyone else who's still on and you guys want me to go through the institute pieces and how to walk around the institute, I can do that. For the 6 gals that were on when we first kicked off, they had attended before or felt like they maybe didn't need that at that moment. So any questions about what we have talked about so far? Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys, these are going to be our January study group modules. So when we come together in January, we are going to be talking about documentation and family engagement. These are the 3 modules that I would like you guys all to take prior to us meeting. It just helps when we're going through the content. And I feel like it gives you guys a little bit more of a refresher. So these are the 3 modules. I will be sending these out along with the slides. And I will be sending Katrin the link to this recording. Otherwise, that's all that I have for you today. If you want me to go through the Institute and how to access certain features on the Institute, please stay on the call and I will happily go through that with you. I just didn't want to have to do that for everybody if everybody had already had it. So up to you guys. You guys can go on ahead and break and roll off and leave me. For those of you that stay, I will walk through the Institute modules again. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Janet. Appreciate you guys attending. Hey, happy holidays, everyone.
Yes, happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays, guys.
Thank you, Christy. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.